When silence speaks. Chapter 1. The Whisper of Silence. In the quiet town of Valewood, nestled between the hills and valleys, lived a young woman named Alina. The town was a place where the hustle and bustle of the world outside rarely reached, and silence ruled like an unseen monarch. Alina had always been drawn to this silence, fascinated by the stillness that enveloped her world. It was said that silence in Valewood could speak to those who truly listened. Alina's parents were humble shopkeepers, content with their life in the peaceful town. But Alina felt different. She longed for something more, something beyond the quiet town, yet the silence in Valewood seemed to hold her back, or perhaps it was the other way around. She could never put it into words, but something in the air seemed to speak to her whenever the town went still. One evening, as Alina wandered through the winding streets of the town, she found herself at the edge of a dense forest known as the Whispering Woods. The trees seemed to be alive, their leaves rustling with an odd rhythm, almost as if they were trying to communicate with her. The wind carried a soft murmur, which, when she listened closely, seemed to form words. Words that only she could understand. You seek more than silence, Alina, the wind seemed to say. The forest was alive with whispers that night, and Alina knew deep in her heart that something extraordinary was about to unfold. Chapter 2. The Secret Beneath the Quiet. Alina began visiting the forest every day. After that encounter, the whispers became clearer with each passing day, until one afternoon, a figure appeared before her, a figure made entirely of light. The light was not harsh, but soft, enveloping the figure like a glowing veil. The figure's face was obscured, but Alina knew instinctively that it was not a human being. "I am the silence that you seek," the figure said, its voice both soft and powerful. "At once you have heard my whispers and come to understand that silence is more than just the absence of sound. It is a force, one that can shake the world if one knows how to listen." Alina's heart raced. She had always felt that silence held secrets, but this revelation was beyond anything she had imagined. The figure gestured to the woods around them. "The world is full of noise, of chaos. But within the quiet moments, there is power, the power to heal, to create, to destroy. Silence is the language of the universe, and you, Alina, have been chosen to learn its true meaning." Alina stood there, her mind spinning with the weight of the figure's words. She had always thought of silence as a simple absence, but now she realized it was something far more profound, something that could not be fully understood without first immersing oneself in it. Chapter 3. The Language of Silence. Days turned into weeks, and Alina's understanding of silence grew deeper. The figure, whom she began to call the Whisperer, continued to guide her, teaching her the language of silence. It wasn't about remaining mute or avoiding sound. It was about listening, true listening, the kind that went beyond words and thoughts, could unlock the mysteries of the universe. The Whisperer took Alina to the heart of the Whispering Woods one night under the light of the full moon. There, they found a clearing where the air was thick with stillness. The trees, the ground, even the animals seemed to pause as if waiting for something. "Tonight," the Whisperer said, "you will learn to speak with silence." Alina was puzzled. How could one speak with silence? Wasn't silence the absence of speech? The Whisperer placed a hand on her shoulder, and she felt a rush of warmth. The air around them seemed to hum with energy, and suddenly Alina could hear the Silence, the deep, resonant silence that filled the world. It wasn't empty. It wasn't void. It was full of meaning, full of life. Silence is not empty, the whisperer explained. It is the space between thoughts, between actions, where truth is born. In the silence, all things are connected. Double quotes. Alina closed her eyes and focused. Slowly, she began to hear the silence speak to her. It was a language she couldn't put into words, but she understood it. The silence spoke of the past, of the present, and of the future. It told her the stories of the stars, of the earth, of every living thing. It whispered truths that no one had ever heard before. In that moment, Alina knew that she had been chosen for something far greater than herself. The silence had spoken, and now it was her turn to listen, to truly listen. Chapter 4. The Silence of the Heart. Months passed, and Alina's connection too. The silence deepened. She no longer felt the need to speak words to communicate. Her silence spoke for her, and others began to notice the change in her. The people of Valewood, who once thought of her as quiet and reserved, began to seek her counsel. They felt drawn to her, sensing the calm and wisdom that radiated from her presence. One day, a young man named Finn approached Alina. He was troubled, his eyes clouded with confusion and sadness. Double quotes. Alina, he said, his voice trembling. I don't know what to do. I'm lost. My heart is heavy and I can't find my way. Alina gazed at him, her eyes soft and understanding. She didn't need words to offer him comfort. She simply sat beside him, allowing the silence to envelop them. She reached out and took his hand, and in that touch, the silence spoke. Finn closed his eyes, and for the first time in months, he felt a sense of peace. The weight in his heart began to lift as he listened to the silence that surrounded them. He could feel the answers to his questions rising within him, not from words, but from the quiet space where truth resided. Double quotes. Thank you, Finn whispered, his voice choked with emotion. Alina smiled gently. She hadn't given him advice or offered him solutions. She had simply allowed the silence to work its magic, to speak the language of the heart. Chapter 5. The Silence of the World. As Alina's understanding of silence deepened, so too did her awareness of the world around her. She began to see how silence was not just a personal experience, but a collective one. The world, with all its noise and chaos, was in desperate need of silence, the kind of silence that could heal wounds, bring clarity, and restore balance. One day, Alina returned to the whispering woods, seeking the guidance of the whisperer. She found the figure standing at the edge of the forest, watching the sunset. The world is in turmoil, Alina said, her voice filled with concern. There is so much noise, so much conflict. How can we ever find peace in a world that is so loud? The whisperer turned to her, its glowing form shimmering in the fading light. The noise you hear is the result of a world that has forgotten how to listen. People are trapped in their own thoughts, consumed by their desires, and disconnected from the silence that connects them all. Alina's heart ached as she thought of the suffering in the world. She had always believed that silence was the key to peace. But how could she share that with others? How could she show them the power of silence in a world that was so deafened by noise? The silence, the whisperer said softly, is already within them. You must simply help them listen. Show them that peace is not something to be found in the world, but something to be cultivated within. Chapter 6. The Path to Silence. Determined to share the gift of silence with others, Alina returned to Valewood and began to teach. She spoke not with words, but with presence. She led meditation sessions in the heart of the whispering woods, where people could sit in silence and listen to the world around them. Slowly, people began to find peace in the stillness. At first, the townspeople were skeptical. They didn't understand how silence could offer them anything. But as they spent more time in the woods, listening to the whispers of the trees, the songs of the birds, and the soft rustling of the leaves, they began to understand. Alina's teachings spread beyond Valewood. People from neighboring towns came to learn from her, drawn by the peace they sensed in her presence. Alina never sought fame or recognition. She simply wanted to share the silence to help others hear the wisdom that it carried. And so, the town of Valewood became a sanctuary for those who sought peace, a place where silence spoke louder than words ever could. Chapter 7. The Legacy of Silence. Years passed, and Alina grew older. Her teachings had touched countless lives, and her influence continued to spread far beyond the hills of Valewood. The whispering woods, once a place of mystery, had become a sacred site, revered by those who understood the power of silence. Alina knew that her time was coming to an end. She had learned the language of silence, and now it was time for her to pass on the torch to the next generation. Before she left, she returned to the heart of the whispering woods one last time. The whisperer appeared to her, its glowing form as radiant as ever. "You have done well, Alina," it said. "You have shown the world that silence is not the absence of sound, but the presence of truth. You have helped them hear the language of the heart." Alina smiled, content in the knowledge that the silence had spoken through her, and that its message would continue to echo through the generations. As the sun set on the town of Valewood, Alina took her final breath. Her legacy lived on, not in the words she spoke, but in the silence she shared with the world. And so, in the quiet corners of the world, where the noise of life fades away, the whispers of silence continue to speak, carrying the lessons of the heart to those who are willing to listen.